Crystal Stokes here with Get Stoked, a podcast with real and raw conversations with leaders of all types, business owners, managers, executives, and more. Get stoked by their honest and insightful stories and key takeaways that you can use to improve your leadership abilities. Now, if you find this podcast helpful, please subscribe and share it with others. Your support and feedback really makes a difference. Now, without further ado, let's dive in. All right. Hey, everybody. Crystal here with Katrina Busselle. And Katrina, you and I, we have worked together. I think you're one rad chick. And that's why I wanted to invite you on this podcast and just have some fun with you. So, if we just kick it off, how about you just tell the world, what do you do professionally?
Is this a conversation where swearing is allowed, Crystal?
If it's with me, then it's guaranteed to happen.
Okay, because I'm going to use a word. I'm going to use a bad word because I think this really encapsulates what I do professionally. So I get shit done. Boom. And it's not just that I'm, busy doing have my fingers in all sorts of pies everywhere, actually doing everything. Really my specialty and what my, professional calling is helping leaders understand that they need a bunch of people under them who are going to get shit done. And the people who are manager types, they need people under them who are subject matter experts who can get things done. And so that's really what I love. I love helping people build companies and organizations and fundamentally get shit done. Because you can have a million ideas and just twirl around having those ideas, but unless you have a way to execute on them and people who can do that really well and organize that work, nothing's much going to happen. So that's what I do.
I can attest to that personally because that's how you and I met, where I was a person who also would declare myself to be one who likes to get shit done, but definitely struggled with, I have to get all the shit done. And the delegation and having the teams around me to assist is where you really helped open my eyes. And then
yes.
I'd say one of your super skills from my perception is the accountability piece of it's one thing to have an idea. Mm-hmm. It's a whole nother ballgame to actually make it real and execute on it. And I think you have a really masterful way of doing it that actually feels good. It's not it's like a school teacher shaking their finger at you. It's actually, there's like a cheerleading and a excitement to it. That's
I feel when I do it, I feel when I'm holding people accountable, I feel like I'm saying, I know you can do this. I know you wanted to do it. I know that you had time set aside for it. Yes. And show me, right? Show me what you're up to. Anyway,
absolutely. Yes. So that kind of dovetails into this idea of, we're talking about leadership. That's the whole point of the conversation today. How would you describe your leadership style and how did you get here? Is there like a circuitous path along the way where you developed this style of yours, or did you just pop out this way?
Good question. I definitely popped out bossy and a woman who knows what I want. We can talk more about bossiness later. But I'll tell you, Crystal, I fell in love. I thought I wanted to be a therapist, interestingly enough. I a social worker. And so that's kind of what I had planned. And then I got turned on to mediation through an internship in college and loved mediation because I figured, it kind of had the best of all the things that I was looking for. And the element that was most exciting to me was learning a process and I trained other mediators in how to do this, like learning a process. And then here goes that get shit done part again, helping people get from this place of, in many cases, stuckness or hopelessness, or, I've tried so many times and I just can't do this, to a place through a facilitation of being able to come up with an agreement, being able to have an outcome that they didn't even imagine they could have had, like all of this opportunity. So I have this love in terms of my leadership style of helping people get from here to there. It's kind of what I'm all about. And then I have these skills that make that happen because it's work. I mean, it's your superpower. That's what, I mean, you help people get from, where they are to where they want to be, to imagine other futures. So, in terms of my leadership style, and I'll try and also make this concrete. So I'm a mother of twin 15-year-olds. I'll be twins. They'll be 16 next month. Not that that matters. And I've had a spirit of kind of delegation, of boundaries and delegation throughout. It's part of my personality, but also part of my parenting. So for example, if we were friends in Brooklyn, New York, and you were to say, come over and say to me, hey, Katrina, look what I found on the telephone pole. It's a music class. And you know how much I love to play the drums. Why don't you take the kids to this drum class? I would say to you, Crystal, that sounds amazing. And you want to take the twins to the drum class. Like, I will pay for the drum lessons, but do it. Like, delegate. Great. I need help. That sounds like a good idea. And I'll tell you, people stopped just, suggesting shit when they realized that meant that then they were going to participate and they were going to do it. I had this wonderful neighbor named Phil. God bless him. He's wonderful. And I had a Zumba class that I like to go to, and he doesn't have kids. So for years, he picked the kids up on Thursdays, walked them through the neighborhood, took them out to dinner, played with them, and I went to Zumba, and it was gorgeous. So there are ways that, I really believe in independence. I really believe in delegation. I really believe people can do it. And if my style is, I don't hang on. I'm not a micromanager by any extension. I never have been. But if you have that delegation and that sense that other people are important to bring it all together, that's how it coalesces for me. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the word that kept coming to mind as I heard you talk is agency. Like, you expect the people you work with to have the agency to do the things. Whereas I see sometimes we fall into a pattern of being so helpful that it actually cripples the other person. Like, we do all the things, like with children, right? If you're always doing everything for them, they don't learn how to grow and be independent and do it on their own. And taking that same philosophy, because you kind of started with this idea of being a parent of these twins,
right?
And how that shows up not only in parenting, but is how you deal with life in general. It's like how you lead your life is also how you lead in your work.
Yes, no, that is absolutely true. And I'll tell you, when I was thinking about this conversation, I was thinking about, and I know that you're focusing on leadership, and I think culturally leadership has so many different meanings, and it's easy to kind of hook it up to people who are extroverts and kind of out there doing the TED Talk, right? And those, like my business partner, Max, for example, he would be doing the TED Talk, no doubt about it. I mean, he will do a TED Talk. He would be out there doing the TED Talk. But here's my version of leadership, Crystal. Max and I would, go consult with an expert, our girl Tamsin, on how to give a TED Talk. Then we would collaborate with her. We would collaborate with each other. I'd go to his house. We'd play with his kids, then figure out what he was going to say. Then we'd practice it. I give him feedback. You know where I'm going with this, right? We figure out what outfit he should wear. We should figure out what lighting it should be. I'm saying, don't forget, you got to pause when you say that. So my version of kind of leadership is that, it's not a derogatory term as I think about it. I don't want to give a TED Talk. I don't want to give a TED Talk. I want to support other people who want to give TED Talks. And I want to make it so that that's someone who otherwise couldn't necessarily organize themselves or have the wherewithal to do it, to actually do it. So in my career trajectory, leaders would often give me the hard projects, the teams to start, the lines of business that were failing, and say, Katrina, just go do this, and set up teams and make it all happen. And all of that would be, kind of in service of the leader of the organization who would want to be who would be out there kind of selling and talking about it. And I was very happy to lead a team, but to be the more behind the scenes leader, strong and behind the scenes.
It reminds me of when I was doing coactive coach training. They have a leadership segment that talks about the different styles of leadership. And what you're describing is like leading from beside or leading from behind.
Yes.
The supportive feature, the one that has your, it's like your sidekick, doesn't want to be in the spotlight, has no desire for that particular form. There are all these different forms of leadership. And I love that you're bringing that in. And do you have anything like any particular ideas about leadership that are really popular out there that you just completely disagree with? You have a contrarian view of?
No, it's not contrarian. I think the challenge is that whoever you're thinking of in terms of a leader couldn't do it without their sidekick. Like if you just focus on the leader, you're not focusing on the person, on the whole experience. So that would be, it's not really contrarian, except for that culturally, we do really think of those folks as them being the leaders when they're surrounded by a bunch of people who make that all happen.
I like that you bring the word culturally too, because I think about how the United States, we're very much focused on independence and the individual. And in reality, everything is systems based. Even the organism in front of you that is crystal is one giant system of all these cells and molecules and chemistry experiments that are happening that make me a thing. And so thinking of how every human operates is within a system. So taking that into account, it's like you're just describing the form of leadership that you contribute to this bigger system.
Yes. Yeah, that's very well put. That's true. I do think in a systems way, Crystal, it's interesting that you use that word because it's very fundamental to how I think. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you think about your leadership style, where you've been and where you're going, what's your biggest challenge you're facing?
So I'll tell you the challenge with my leadership style. I've certainly hit this over the years, and also think about my training as a mediator. And part of what happens as a mediator is there's a chameleon-like quality that I have where I'm going to adapt my communication style, my expectations based on the person that's sitting in front of me. So the pitfalls, personally, are that, for example, I was married to a guy, my kid's downstairs, so I won't talk too loud on this part, for a long time. And I just molded myself to kind of cope with the situation and deal with dysfunctional communication and just turn it all into just everyday, thing. And so that's a pitfall. The pitfall is, I can lose myself if I'm spending the whole time kind of bending in work relationships or personal relationships. So that's a problem or challenge. And I'm getting much better at that, by the way, but it's easy for me because I adapt so well. I imagine you do too. You probably do a much better job at this because I adapt so well to difficult personalities. And you might say, oh, Katrina, she can deal with anything. I lose my own sense. And then just thinking about it, like with my kids and my parenting, I mean, I am one of the most independent parents you'll ever meet. And my kids, and I'm very proud of this, they both are fabulous cooks. They make their own meals. They wake themselves up. They get themselves ready. They do their own laundry. I leave them for days at a time in the house by themselves, and they completely care for themselves. I don't micromanage their school. I don't ask them if they did their homework. Really independent. But what I don't know, and I've had a little bit of a challenge with this, but what I don't know is like, that works for me now, but what might it look like? I get worried about like, am I going to have to change this? You know, my kids are already like coming home with friends on their own at whatever hour. I don't have a curfew. I don't really believe in curfew, but am I going to have to switch this up at some point? I guess I will when it happens, but I get nervous about that too. Like, do I rely too much on my kind of DNA of giving them core, not giving them. They are secure, competent kids who I trust completely. Is that going to backfire on me at some point? Is that not going to be okay? Because other parents certainly don't operate that way. Their friends are all tracking their phones and they can't, make a grilled cheese sandwich themselves and like all this stuff. Like, that's just not how we roll.
Yeah. Oh,
what do you think about that? Do you think I should be worried do you think I should be worried about that? Or you think I should just like keep going? And then when it doesn't work anymore, I'm not a big worrier, but I do think, I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's going to go to hell in a handbasket. Yeah, no, I definitely have an opinion on this. And I
want to hear your opinion, Crystal. You're so wise.
And I want to touch on the personality stuff too.
Yes, please.
When it comes to the concerns we have, like, am I doing the right thing parenting and what's going to happen? It's the same way I deal with any type of anxiety. Like, anxiety is just future tripping. I'm thinking and worried about the future. I want to have certainty. I want to forecast the future. And I just say to people, it's a waste of your goddamn time. Mm-hmm. Okay. Live a values-based life in this moment. If you are saying, I'm doing what I believe to be the right thing that is aligned with my values right now, that's how I made that decision, then all the future concerns you would address with, I'll deal with it when I get there. I'm a resilient human. I know that when and if a bad thing happens, like that my independent style of parenting suddenly turns into something bad, I will deal with it in that moment because that's how I roll. I'm resilient. I'm a capable human. I'm resourceful. I will find what I need in the moment.
Yeah.
You're said and done. I definitely catch myself future tripping and like, what if this and what if that? And fearing all the traps and things that I've created that I didn't realize I made.
Right.
But the evidence shows when it comes to evidence-based psychology that, worrying about the future, that type of anxiety is really not very helpful.
Yeah.
Predict it. There's so many variables at play. Like the development of a human, it's based on how you parent, but it's also, there is that genetic component of who they're going to be. As you probably felt when they popped out, you're like, you are kind of your own thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
For me to write on,
That's helpful. I mean, that is really helpful because I feel so confident day to day on how I'm doing it now, how I have done it. I just get, sometimes that's really helpful, Crystal.
It also really depends on the kid because I think that different children will pull a different parenting style out. Like if you had a child that just didn't seem to have certain levels of executive functioning and they, no matter what you did coaching wise and parenting wise, they couldn't get their homework done. They couldn't get their teeth brushed. You'd be responding differently. But the fact that your kids seem to thrive in this kind of, the conditions that you set up.
Right.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
And also on the personality styles, personality is one of my favorite aspects of psychology by far. And I was very resistant to it. I didn't want to know these things. When I was in grad school, we had this, course on personality typology, and I was totally resistant. I was like, this is bullshit. This is just as bad as like astrology. Like, you're going to label me and put me in some box. Like, don't put me in a box. That was my attitude. And one of our professors, he came over from Stanford. He's a Stanford psychiatrist. His name is David Daniels. He's passed away now, unfortunately. But he got up there in front of us and he just said in a very sweet way, and he did not hear anything. I had not said this to him. It's like he was reading my mind. He just stood there in front of our group and said, the personality typology I'm going to be teaching you today, it's called the Enneagram. Horrible word, big blah in your mouth. And it's not about labeling you and putting you into a box. It's about helping you identify the box you're already in and how to get out of it. And I went, what box am I already in? I want to get out of a box. Like that totally hooked me.
That's awesome.
And so he really, the way I learned it from him was that we all have different personality styles. It's your box or the color lens that you see the world through, but it doesn't mean you have to always live in that box or live through that lens. The point is to know all of them and to say, oh, I'm getting stuck in this groove, but I don't know if it's helpful right now. So maybe I need to shift, and just being very mindful that we have a habit or a tendency. You'll probably always have it. Like your dominant personality type will always be like being right-handed or left-handed, but it doesn't mean you can't adapt. So I really feel you when you're discussing that, your superpower of being able to be a chameleon,
right.
Adapt really well, definitely has a dark side. And in the type of personality system I use, that'd be called like the giver and helper, or maybe the achiever. And then there's also the peacekeeper. Like all three of those types are really good at reading things and adapting. And they do tend to feel a sense of like, oh, who am I and what was I here to do? And that can be a kind of a lonely feeling at the end of the day, where you achieve so much and you get a lot done, but was it really gratifying for you?
So, yeah, no, that's really interesting, Crystal. I'm doing this this coaching program, which started off really wonderful, a group coaching program, and now I'm finding there's all these dramatic things happening with these women. Not even dramatic, like crazy dramatic, but just, I have 7 children, my husband doesn't want to, have sex with me, like, really intense stuff. And I'm just kind of listening and offering once in a while, I'll pipe in with something. But I think to myself, well, I don't have any. I knew that I didn't have big things going into this that I wanted to work on. I didn't know. I thought that would be okay. I think it probably is, but I don't find myself saying anything. I find myself just kind of listening. And to your point, what you just said about, kind of the dangers of that personality, that my personality is like, okay, I'll listen to them. I'll give them some pointers once in a while when it makes sense and I can relate to it personally. I don't have anything that's like that going on. Therefore, I'm not going to participate. Therefore, I'm ultimately not going to get my need met to be part of community because I'm busy, helping. So.
Oh, I know. It's so true. It's like you're getting trapped in like helper gear. And it's like your brain is so focused on helping. The way I've always described it, it's like you have external radar and then you have internal radar. It's like beep, beep, beep. Like, what are you tracking? And it's almost like it takes a lot of effort to turn the radar back on the inside and say, all right, I hear all of you and all your needs, and it's very interesting, and I want to jump in, but I'm in this group for me. So I have to take that energy and somehow turn the spotlight back inside and be like, what was I here for? What do I need? And it's funny because there are other personality types that are the opposite. They're very attuned to what they want, to their agenda, to what they're here for. And they're like, oh, are there other people? Oh, y'all, huh? It's just different types, different styles. We need them all to make the world go round. But you're noticing, I love that you're sharing that, because I think so many people that will listen to this will resonate with that sense of really being led by the external factors around them, that's really what draws their attention. And that it just feels like it's almost, do you experience it like it takes extra effort to turn the attention back to you to really discover what you need?
Absolutely. Yeah. Discover, like, I feel like I've had a good time in this program discovering it in like a journaling or sitting on in that chair, having insights. So there've been great things that have come from that, but feeling like I want to kind of pipe up with my experience, what I might be struggling with in compared to other people. I'm like, no, other people can go. I'm good. Can
I ask you, it's like a little minute question, but like kind of sorting things out. When you feel that resistance coming up, like you have the opportunity, you could speak up, but there's that party that's like, no. I'm wondering, is it A, I shouldn't say anything because my stuff is not nearly as important as their stuff. So they deserve it because theirs is harder. Is it B? I'm a helper giver. I don't take, I give. I shouldn't take up space. I should give, or it's uncomfortable for me to receive. It's a yucky kind of weird feeling to take things, or is it maybe all those or something else?
It might be both. I feel like I really, really feel like if I had something that I wanted, I could be so psyched. In fact, I'll get back to you on this because we have these groups. I had to miss mine today. I had calls. If I have something that I really want to express or want the group, I feel like if I have something to talk about and get it all ready and then I'll do it, and I would like to hear what they have to say. I would like to be the recipient of that. But otherwise I want other people to go. So it's kind of both, except for I really do accept help. Like, if you were to say to me, hey, it sounds like you're really struggling with that, I'm happy to spend some time with you and talk that through. I'd say, that's awesome. A colleague of yours did that for me. And I was like, that's great. I would love that. And then I can take it and it's wonderful. So I don't have a hard time accepting it if I have kind of maybe framed it, like packaged it up and kind of put it out there.
I love that you know that about yourself. So there's something about being able to have your own internal process and sort of package it and evolve it to a point where you can bring it up and say it to the group in a way that feels right for you. Yeah.
Interesting.
So given this challenge that we're kind of talking about with started off with the chameleon aspect, and that it's a superpower, but it's also a bit of kryptonite. What would you say is do you see an opportunity kind of dangling in front of you with regards to this?
I think, yes, the opportunity is really as simple as being clear about what my contribution is and speaking up. And in the helping environment, or my job and myself as a leader, when I'm around other leaders, or my business partner, for example, who is so extroverted and is just like running the show in the biggest way, my clients tell me they so appreciate me being the counterbalance to that energy and keeping him on track and keeping the process on track and kind of holding people accountable. So I know that. And actually they just keep asking me for more. They want more. They want me to pipe up more, to feel like I have more things to say. So that would be, I think, the challenge that I would put out for myself. Psychologically, it's easy for me to say, oh, Max is just going to say that. Like, I know exactly what he's going to say. We've worked together for years, but he says a lot of the same things. I know what he's going to say. I know how he's going to say it. I know the story he's going to tell. So it's not that I can either teach that same concept in my own way or figure out more ways for me to contribute what I know that I bring. But I easily sit back and just, let him do his thing. I know that makes sense to you, Crystal, right? And it's totally aligned with what we were just talking about. It's just like,
oh, I know. I'm just sitting here thinking I'm going to send you the personality assessment because I really want to know of the three. I'm kind of grouping you into one of the three, which one it is, because they're like really specific recommendations for each type that I think are just magic for each type. When I read mine, I was like, holy, woo, like that is good. If you can live by those. And I feel you exactly. It's funny because I come back to the very beginning of this conversation where you said you popped out bossy. Mm-hmm. It almost feels like there's a call to action to like bring that bossy back, to be, the world is asking you, give me more Katrina, like that thing you do, you can turn the volume up, girl. Like we like that. It's like juicy guardrails in a way, that help you say, hey, you take these, extroverted leaders who are trying to make things happen in their life, but they kind of go all over the place, and you just bring them in and focus. Hey, this is where you need to go. Let me point this out to you because you have the vision. You can sort of see because you're standing back. You have perspective while they're right front and center. The world is asking you to bring more of you.
I know, chills, right? Good stuff, Crystal. Damn, girl.
Hey.
And I would love to take I would love to take the Enneagram in particular. I've never done it. I've heard people like Brene Brown start citing, that she's a 1 and people are 5s. And, when people talk like that, you're like, ew. But Brene talking about that with her sisters, I'm like, okay, there's something here because, she's amazing.
Oh, it's legit. It really is. I've studied so many different typology systems, and there are many good ones, but I think that the Enneagram is by far the most relatable, and it just brings out I use it as a compassion building tool. That's my favorite part of it, is that it builds compassion for yourself and others and in a really profound way. It's like, you just feel it. You're like, I get it now. Like it hits you in the heart. And I'll send it over to you so you can play around with that and explore. I want to leave off with just a couple more generalized questions. One would be for anybody listening, like those people, if they're like me and you, probably. I know I love just tips and tricks and little things. Like, give me some. Are there any? You think about leadership in general? Any like the golden nugget advice you wish you had known like 20 years ago, or if you could go back and tell your younger self, or just that succinct message that's like, you need to know this, kid.
Well, I'll bring Bossy back on that one. What I would tell my younger self, it's that Jacoby's window thing. So I would be perceived by colleagues in an office environment because of the strength of my personality and my communication methods at times, arrogant, bossy, privileged. And I spent a lot of time fighting that, or being like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? When what I'd like to tell my younger self is it's information about your perception, and a bunch of people are giving this information. So Katrina, it doesn't matter if you think that you're just a straightforward communicator or that you're really good at asserting yourself and getting your way. If you're perceived that way, you at least need to know that perception is going on and figure out if you are okay with that or if you want that to change. So I think self-awareness, but the element of self-awareness leaders that comes from the information that you get from others that you don't know, it is important, and you have to figure out what to do with it.
Oh, if I had a highlighter to highlight words in the air, I'm highlighting, and you need to know you need to decide what to do with it.
Yes.
We do 360s all the time in corporate where it's like, oh, let's have everybody evaluate you. And you get this whole bucket of information about how people see you and how you're performing. And then you have your own of how you thought it was. And they either perfectly align or they don't. Most of the time they don't. And I think that there's a real tendency to just take on criticism as if it's the gospel. Like, oh, so-and-so thinks I'm too bossy, so I must stop being bossy. But do you? Right. Really? Like, we have to really ask that question to be, careful about what we take on, because it's just data, right? You might ask 10 other people in a different setting and they might say something really different. You're just going to continuously mold or...
Right. Yeah, and then you have the scrim of being female and, having a direct style and, the generic, the whole gender piece there where, that's really not like men are going to be like, no, you can't do that. That's what we do. That's our province.
Totally open to that. When I took, I did my training with Cornell in high performance leadership, and I had done some modules in the women in leadership segment. And it was totally eye-opening to me. I just never considered it because I'm a very assertive, just shoot. This is what you get. What you see is what you get kind of gal. And I'm just raised up that way. I'm very comfortable with the male world and that kind of energy. And when I was listening to these lectures, I just there's so many things I had never thought about. It even brings me to your blog post that I read about, what was the title of it? It was when you're trying to find work.
Right. Crap. What was it? It was like, the misadventures of a older woman looking for work or something like that.
And I loved it. It's so, it's all like this similar theme, but there are these kind of undercurrents that happen and how we are perceived and how we show up. And just to be aware of those and to let them inform what we're doing. I have a cat right now walking on my desk, like, she steps on the little thing that makes it go up and down. Thank you for coming into our podcast, Texie.
I'll tell you, I have two other things that I want to mention that are, just kind of things that have done me very well over the years. And this one is going to be so fundamental, it's probably exercise could beat it out in terms of how much this matters. But sleep, like my secret sauce is sleep. It always has been. I get enough of it. My kids go to bed at 8. I go to bed at 8:30. I wake up early. Yes. They had excellent sleep hygiene. I made them. I sleep trained them. So sleep for everybody. But leaders we don't even have to say anymore. And then audiobooks. I love listening to things, and I have plenty of time where I can listen to things. I can listen to whatever I want. Business books. I'm listening to a romance right now. It's fantastic. I love it. I love it as a way of absorbing and a way of using time that otherwise, would kind of be dead. So I'd say those are just really important things that make me who I am. Sleep in more than audiobooks, but I feel like audiobooks are also huge, and podcasts in my life.
I'm so similar to you. I love that you brought sleep in. I must say this probably 3 to 4 times a week with different clients, which is that all the work we're doing here with like leadership development and blah, blah, blah is garbage. You can just throw it in the trash if you're not sleeping. So sleep is the like soil that everything else germinates and grows in. If you're not sleeping, like I have people come with me, you're like, oh, I think, I have this, I'm so anxious all the time. I have this problem and that problem. I'm like, well, how are you sleeping? Oh, I like terrible. It's crap. Let's just start there. A few weeks of good sleep. They're like, I think I'm good to go. I'm like, yeah, you're good to go. It's that simple. It's amazing how detrimental it is when you're not getting sleep, but how much it invigorates you and just lightens you up when you're getting it. So thank you for saying that. I should pay everybody before they come on the show because it's that important. You really should always have that mentioned. It's so critical.
Yeah. All right. Excellent.
Yes. Okay. Lastly, where can people find you? Let's say they want to connect. They dig your stories. They want to
fantastic. Yeah. Well, it's awesome. I'll spell my name for everybody, and my website is going to be my first and last name. So I'm at KatrinaBusselle.com, and you can see it right here on the screen, KatrinaBusselle.com. And feel free. You can message me through there. You can also message me at email is Katrina@KatrinaBusselle.com. Very catchy, but I would always love hearing from people and love having conversations. And I thank you, Crystal, for this opportunity. This was really wonderful.
Absolutely. I had a blast, Katrina. Thanks so much for being on today.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.